Hi, my name is Dr. Herrera with Iscalia Health, and if you're just getting started and are feeling overwhelmed with figuring out what to eat and what not to eat to lose weight and reverse your MASLD-induced fatty liver disease, then this video is for you. And for those of you that don't know what MASLD is, it stands for Metabolic Dysfunction Associated Steatotic Liver Disease, or MASLD for short. And it is officially the new term that is replacing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Let's start with a question. What if I told you that obsessing over eating the right type of carbs, the right type of fats, the right type of proteins, whether or not you consume high fructose corn syrup or not, whether you eat candy or sweets, or whether you eat fast food every single day, isn't really all that important when it comes to reversing MASLD-related fatty liver disease? Would that surprise you? Shock you even? Maybe some of you are a little upset after what I just said and want to kick me in the shins. Well, we all know that at this point, that improving our nutrition and lifestyle, and losing weight, of course, is a crucial aspect of reversing MASLD-related fatty liver disease, again, previously known as NAFLD or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And there's no way around it, really, right? Nutrition and lifestyle improvements are basically the only way to improve MASLD, at least for now. But when you first start on the path, right, of addressing your nutrition and you start to seek answers on what to eat, what not to eat, and so on and so forth, you tend to run into a big problem. And that problem is that you get instantly bombarded and overloaded with a ton of information on the internet and social media. You read that the Mediterranean diet is the best diet for reversing a fatty liver, and then you read ketogenic diet is actually the best, and then fasting is actually the best, but now keto is bad and the Mediterranean diet is good or better, or the Mediterranean diet plus fasting is the best, on and on and on and on and on. And it all becomes this giant, contradicting, chaotic mess. And very quickly, you get overwhelmed, you get confused, your anxiety levels start to rise because you're trying to fix this problem with your liver, but you don't know where to start and you feel like you're running out of time because your liver is getting worse and worse and worse. And perhaps worst of all, you literally start to become afraid of food, which is crazy. And eventually you get so overwhelmed that you give up on trying to figure out this stuff and make very little to no progress in your health. So in order to help free you from this insanity, I'm going to share something that is going to sound a little controversial at first, but if you pay close attention, it's actually going to make a lot of sense. And that is that the type of food that you eat does not matter. That's right, I said it. All that talk about good carbs versus bad carbs, good fats versus bad fats, whatever, throw it all out the window for now. Because if you're just starting out, there is only one thing that you should be worrying about, one skill that you should be practicing and getting really good at before considering anything else. And that one skill is tracking calories. And more specifically, figuring out how many calories you should be eating per day in order to lose weight and fit within your specific lifestyle, and also making sure that you stick to that number every single day consistently. That's it. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll actually show you a very simple way to do this that will cost you nothing and literally change everything for you. But first, because I know you guys, I know how the internet works, a lot of you are probably outraged by what I just said and are probably ready to crucify me in the comments. Allow me to explain why I am making such a seemingly bold and probably controversial statement. Because at this point, you should be asking yourself, is there any scientific evidence that supports the notion that it is more important to focus on how much food we eat versus what kinds of foods we're eating when it comes to reversing MASLD, aka NAFLD, and losing weight? Well, let's take a look. Now listen, when I first started researching the best nutrition principles and strategies for reversing MASLD, right, I too was super obsessed with the nitty-gritty details, right, the splitting of hairs about what type of carbs I should be eating, or what type of fats I should be avoiding, or what kind of proteins are the best for your liver, or what kind of micronutrients or supplements, or whatever it is, right? But then I ran across studies like this that completely challenged my beliefs around the role and the importance of specific nutrients compared to the total calories consumed. And this really opened my eyes to an often ignored, right? Often ignored part of daily nutrition that I think you should be aware of. Now check this out. This study from 2016 observed the eating habits of patients with confirmed non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, this is before they changed the name, compared to healthy controls, and found a few very interesting things. Overall, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease patients consumed more calories from carbs, fats, and proteins overall compared to people that didn't have a fatty liver. Okay, important. Of those calories, there were actually no significant differences in the relative amounts of carbs, fats, and fructose in between both groups. What does that mean? That means that both groups ate the relatively same amount of carbs, fats, and even fructose, right? And the only difference between those that had a fatty liver and those that did not have a fatty liver was that the fatty liver group ate more of it. But it gets even crazier because then they introduced a diet intervention strategy for both groups, right? So for the group that had fatty liver and the group that didn't, for 6 months, right? And in this diet strategy, the average amount of carbohydrates that was prescribed was about 40%. Another 40% came from fats and about 15% came from proteins, very similar to the Mediterranean diet, right? And on average, both groups consumed about a 700 calorie daily deficit, meaning that they ate 700 calories less than they did when they first started the study. Now, at the end of the study, they followed up with all the participants, and this is what happened. The average weight reduction in the fatty liver group was about 3.2%, around 3% weight loss, right, in the period of 6 months. And there was improvement in liver enzyme scores in most of the NAFLD patients, and they were significant improvements. Now, here is the kicker. The consumption of glucose and fructose did not differ between baseline and follow-up in NAFLD patients, meaning that the NAFLD patients in the NAFLD group ate the same amount of glucose and fructose per 1,000 calories over the period of 6 months and still saw a reduction in weight and an improvement in liver function. The only difference is that they ate less calories than when they first started. How crazy is that? That kind of challenges the whole notion that carbs and fructose need to be completely eliminated from our diet, right? But wait, there's more. Because obviously one small study isn't necessarily enough to come to any real worthy conclusions, especially statistically, so I decided to dig a little deeper. And in my research, I ran across a few systematic reviews. And for those of you who don't know what a systematic review is, it's basically when a group of researchers look at all the available evidence, all the studies that exist on a particular topic, and then they compile the results into one easy to read paper, right? So it's basically a review, right? And this one by Semler et al. Published in 2023, right? This is very recent, highlighted some really important bits of information that they found from across the literature. And I'm going to share with you 4 of those highlights. And of course, you can read this paper on your own if you want to study it up a little more. But the first highlight, check this out. Focusing on NAFLD, right? So focusing on just fatty liver disease, several studies have shown that a total calorie deficit of about 500 calories, meaning that you're eating 500 less calories a day, results and leads to a decrease in body weight, transaminase levels or liver enzyme levels, right? Total body fat, visceral fat, and intrahepatic liver content, which is a fancy word that means fat in your liver, regardless of how it is achieved. Now, what this means, especially that last part, is that decreases in body weight, right, weight loss, improvements in liver function, improvements in visceral fat, and a reduction in fat in your liver can be achieved just by reducing your total calorie consumption by 500 calories, meaning you're eating 500 calories less than you're used to, regardless of how it is achieved, meaning it doesn't actually matter what you're eating as long as you reduce your total calorie content or in consumption by 500 calories. Super crazy. Now here's another bit that's mind-blowing from the same paper. An important study by Kirk et al. Reported similar changes in body weight, body composition, and again, intrahepatic liver content levels or levels of fat in the liver after 7% of weight loss following a hypocaloric, low-carb diet versus a high-carb diet. Now, what does this mean? Well, in the study that they're talking about, they took one group of people with fatty liver disease and put them on a low-calorie, high-carb diet, And then they put another group of people with fatty liver disease on a low-calorie, low-carb diet. And at the end of the study, they both had similar improvements in body weight composition, weight loss, and the level of fat in their liver, which ended up decreasing for both groups. Now, according to these results, this means that you can improve your fatty liver disease whether you're on a high-carb diet or a low-carb diet, as long as you're in a calorie deficit. How crazy is that? But it doesn't end there. Finally, evidence highlighting the importance of calorie reduction originates from the observation that low-carb diets are only successful in reducing the level of fat in your liver when integrated into a hypocaloric diet approach. Now, this is wild because what they're saying in these studies and what they have found is that low-carb diets like the ketogenic diet, for example, only work if you're at a calorie deficit. If you go on a low-carb diet, but you're still eating way too many calories, it actually won't make any difference, according to these studies, on the amount of liver fat or fat in your liver or weight loss. Now, check this out. The last thing I'll share about this review. Interestingly, a recent meta-analysis of observational studies including over 100,000 individuals. So this is an analysis of a bunch of studies that together compose of 100,000 subjects, which is a huge number, very statistically significant, has shown that the only difference between NAFLD or fatty liver disease patients and controls, right, or the patients or the groups that don't have this disease, was a higher calorie intake, while the macronutrient composition did not significantly differ. So according to this large meta-analysis, the one thing that they could see and they could find as far as the difference between people that have a fatty liver versus people that did not, is that the fatty liver people just simply ate way more calories compared to the controls. And there was actually no difference or very little difference in the kind of foods that they were eating. So we're talking about people on both sides that were eating fructose, carbs, proteins, fats, whatever it is. There wasn't any significant difference. The only difference was that NAFLD people or NAFLD folks actually consumed much higher calories than those that did not have that disease. Wow. So this begs the question, why are we not paying more attention to this, right? Why are we not talking about this more? Because very little people discuss calorie control, right? We're always obsessed about what fats or what proteins. How many people, like think about this, how many people are actually figuring out how many calories they need to be eating to facilitate weight loss, right? At about a 500 calorie deficit, according to the research. And how many people are actually tracking their calories on a daily basis so they can stay within their caloric goals consistently? My guess is not that many. But the research is clear that even if you just reduce your total daily calorie consumption by 500 calories, right, you will most likely see results. Even more so than just sticking to a specific diet or getting rid of an entire food group like carbs, like in the ketogenic diet, which, is usually unsustainable anyways. Because how many of you have tried to force yourself to stick to the Mediterranean diet or the ketogenic diet, right? Or tried to forever get rid of sugar and fructose, thinking that you're somehow disciplined enough to sustain that for the rest of your life? A little crazy, right? Now, on the flip side, how many of you think you can focus on just eating a certain amount of calories per day without worrying about what specific foods to eat or not eat? Doesn't that sound easier? Now, for you nutrition inquisitors out there, because I know you exist, let me be clear. I am not saying that the types of carbs, proteins, and fats do not matter. Of course they matter, and there's a ton of research to support that. And obviously, if you have certain food allergies or food sensitivities, like gluten, for example, then you should avoid those foods. But you should already know that by now. And yes, knowing the difference between saturated fats versus poly and monounsaturated fats, and how saturated fats, especially processed ones, tend to be more inflammatory, tend to promote weight gain and insulin resistance, all of which worsens your fatty liver disease, right? The difference between good carbs and bad carbs and how high fiber carbs are preferable, especially from plant sources, vegetables, the difference between animal protein versus plant protein. And if you're going to do animal protein like beef, for example, make sure that the source of the protein gives that beef a higher omega-3 versus versus omega-6 fatty acid content, as in the case between grass-fed versus commercially grown beef, and of course the different supplements. And yes, there are genetic differences between ethnic groups that'll either increase the chances of you developing fatty liver disease or not. And of course, there's the whole factor of nutrigenomics, where certain nutrients will affect the gene expression that'll either worsen your condition or not, on and on and on and on. But are all of these details something that you should be worrying about when you first start out? Probably not. It's just way too much to stress out about. Start with the simplest thing first, and that is tracking your calories. And then build up from there as you gain experience. And the beauty of the strategy is that it'll give you way more flexibility in your diet, right, than trying to be super restrictive, right? Because you can still more or less eat your favorite, junky, unhealthy foods and still see results as long as you're in a calorie deficit. And then this will help you stick to the new dietary changes longer and make it more sustainable, right? And you won't have to feel bad about eating that slice of cake at your birthday party or pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving, because you know that as long as you stick to the range of calories for the day, you're good. And then as you go along and learn more about what a healthy diet and nutrition looks like, you can make incremental adjustments, right? Little by little, you can start building out the right health meal plan for yourself, which is much more easier and much more sustainable. So your question now is probably, how do we go about figuring out how many calories you should be eating to support healthy, sustainable weight loss? Well, I'm going to keep things very simple and just recommend an app that I love using with my clients and also that I use personally, because it works really well, it's super easy, and more importantly, for a lot of you, it's free, right? And that app is Chronometer. And no, I'm not affiliated with Chronometer. They're not asking me to do this. I just really like their product. It's a great service. And this app will allow you to track your food on a daily basis, so you can put in your food and your drinks, and more importantly, track the amount of calories that you're consuming. And it's a phone app, so you can download it, through Apple Store or whatever, Android Store, Android Play, I forgot what it's called, and have it in your phone, so you can just easily input the food. It even has a barcode scanner, so if you eat something that's coming from that has a barcode, you can just scan it and it automatically populates it. It's super convenient. You can also do it through your desktop or web browser as well on your computer. And it has a built-in calculator. It allows it to automatically calculate, right, how many calories you need to be eating daily to facilitate weight loss based on certain details like your weight, your age, your height, your activity level, and it does all these calculations for you. And as a bonus for watching this entire video, I'm also including an easy-to-read PDF guide that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to properly set up your Chronometer account so you can start tracking your daily meals and begin practicing this super important skill. Or if you're more of a visual learner, I'll link a video that I did a while back on how to set up your Chronometer account step-by-step. That's it for this video. Hopefully this helps you out a bit more and gives you a little more peace of mind. Let me know what your biggest takeaway is in the comment section, and I will see you in the next one.